You check the lock on your front door twice before bed. You tell yourself it's just a habit. But somewhere in your mind, you already know a lock is only a promise, not a guarantee. Because the biggest heists in history were never stopped by locks. They were stopped by nothing at all. On a March night in 1990, two men in police uniforms knocked on the door of a museum in Boston. They said there had been a disturbance. They said they needed to look around. 81 minutes later, they walked out with 13 works of art worth $500 million, and they were never seen again. No alarms, no arrests, no leads that ever closed the case. Just an empty museum wall that still hangs empty today. How does a crime this large simply vanish into history? The answer isn't criminal genius. It's the gap between how you think security works and how it actually works. Criminologist Neil Shaver, who spent decades studying professional thieves, found that the most successful ones weren't the most technically skilled. They were the ones who understood people better than anyone else in the room. Not locks, people. A guard who wants to be helpful. A tired watchman who trusts a uniform without question. These aren't weaknesses in a security system. They're doors nobody thought to lock, because they aren't made of metal. The guard in Boston did exactly what he'd been trained to do when police showed up at 1 a.m. He opened the door. Why does that work so well on you? Because your brain is built to trust patterns, not people. A badge means safety. A calm voice means nothing is wrong. Researcher Volkan Topali, who studies the psychology of offenders, found that the most effective ones spend more time managing how they appear than managing what they actually do. They aren't hiding in shadows. They're standing in plain sight, wearing the exact costume that makes you stop asking questions. Here's the twist. The Gardner heist has never been solved, partly because nothing about it was memorable. No mask, no weapon, no struggle. Fear leaves a mark on memory. Politeness doesn't. Think about the vault at Antwerp's Diamond Center, robbed in 2003 by a man authorities called the School of Turin. He rented a small office inside the very building, holding tens of millions in diamonds for years, until employees stopped noticing him at all. Psychologists call this habituation. Once your brain classifies something as familiar, it stops actively evaluating it as a threat. You do this every day with the same face in your hallway, the same car parked on your street. Researcher Paul Cromwell, who interviewed convicted burglars directly, found that most of them feared a nosy neighbor asking one simple question far more than any alarm system ever built. Not police, not technology. A person paying attention, willing to speak up. That's the quiet ingredient behind almost every perfect crime in history. Not silence, isolation, a moment where no one felt it was their place to ask. Think about the last time something felt slightly off to you. A stranger lingering too long near a doorway. A message urging you to act immediately before you had time to think. Did you say anything? Most people don't because they've been trained, the same way that museum guard was trained, to defer to confidence over instinct. That's the real inheritance behind every unsolved heist like this one. Not a flaw in your locks, a flaw in your certainty about what danger is supposed to look like. This pattern doesn't only belong to museums and vaults. It shows up in a phone call from someone claiming to be your bank. It shows up in an email that looks like it came from a coworker in a hurry. It shows up any time confidence arrives before suspicion has a chance to catch up. The costume changes with every generation. The trust it exploits never does. The paintings stolen from that museum have never come home. The reward for their return has grown into the tens of millions. Somewhere, they may still exist, rolled up in a box, forgotten in an attic, or long since destroyed by people who never understood what they held. The case remains open, technically, but in every way that matters, it closed the moment that door opened, 81 minutes before anyone realized what had happened. You still check your lock twice before bed, and maybe you should keep doing that. But the next time you feel safe because someone looks the part, wears the right uniform, or simply seems too familiar to question, remember what history's greatest thieves already knew. The strongest door in any building was never the one with the lock. It was the one guarded by a person too polite to ask why.